Nanda, welcome to In Parliament. I'm Sharon Tong. Today, Parliament continued its debate on the spending plans of several ministries. Key announcements from the Trade and Industry Ministry on helping SMEs and from the National Development Ministry on HDB policies to help the disadvantaged and build strong families. First, building on the government's key message of ensuring inclusive growth, the Ministry of Finance will take the lead to help boost the wages of low-income earners. It will make all government agencies source from accredited contractors under a new best sourcing initiative for the cleaning and security industries. Minister of State Josephine Teo says contract companies will then be encouraged to increase productivity and upgrade the skills of the low-income workers in these sectors and hence help workers to earn more. Ms. Teo says the government hopes this will set an example for the entire private sector to follow.
Tripartite partners are working together to finalise the criteria for enhanced accreditation. This is a work in progress. Once the criteria is finalised, sufficient time will be given for contractors to be accredited. Government will consult the industry and set an effective date from which only accredited contractors can bid for government contracts. We expect that within 2 years of the effective date, vast majority of government cleaning and security contracts will be serviced by accredited contractors.
That may hopefully have knock-on effects to the private sector companies as well, because that may drive up wages in the sector altogether. The cleaning sector, I think, is a good example because I understand the government employs a large number of cleaners in the cleaning sector. I believe 6,000 out of 46,000 local cleaners. So this may be a good way to drive up the wages of the cleaners.
In this regard, we are heartened that autonomous agencies such as the restructured hospitals and universities have already indicated their support for the best sourcing initiative. We share Mr. Nair's desire to see many more companies come on board to support the BSI. The government hopes that by taking the lead, we provide a strong signal to the entire private sector to embrace the best sourcing initiative and help in this very meaningful national effort to uplift our low-wage workers.
As for helping SMEs, the government will go out of its way to help them gain access to schemes like the Productivity and Innovation Credit Scheme. Ms. Teo says the claims process for the scheme is already simple, but it will be streamlined even further. Besides doubling the cash payout under the scheme and relaxing the criteria on in-house training, there'll also be more channels to help businesses understand the scheme. This will be led by the Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore.
First, it will start a new series of PIC clinics, which offer one-on-one consultations to businesses in partnership with the 5 major business chambers and associations. The clinics will be held weekly over the next 6 months and will be free of charge. Second, IRAS will focus on small and micro enterprises operating in HDB neighbourhoods. And that's where many of our SMEs are. And this will be through a new program organized jointly with the community development councils. Third, IRAS will engage service providers like IT vendors, software providers, and trainers so that they become more familiar with the PIC and help their customers benefit from it.
Still on productivity, the Trade and Industry Ministry explained the need to help businesses increase productivity standards as the external environment is becoming more competitive and there are limits to how much land and labour Singapore have. For these reasons, Mr. Lim Heng Kiang says Singapore needs to restructure to move up the value chain. This can be done at 4 levels for the economy as a whole, developing new promising clusters. At the sectoral level, firms must continue to move up the value chain to higher value-added activities. Mr. Lim said at the company level, employers must innovate and improve work processes. Finally, he said workers must continually upgrade and undergo retraining.
Given the uncertainties of the global market as well as the slower growth, can the Ministry of Trade and Industry provide an update on the progress made against the growth strategies set out?
We pursue economic growth in an inclusive manner by generating a spectrum of jobs, not just top jobs, but also jobs, good jobs at all income levels. Broad-based wage increases can only be sustain if we are able to achieve productivity at all levels. Therefore, our focus is on retraining and upskilling our workers so that they can take on these better jobs. We are serious about helping our companies to cope with rising business costs and to restructure for growth. The government is not expecting instant results, but we are restructuring for sustained growth over the long term. We will put in place the right measures and the incentives to encourage our businesses to upgrade. We are working with our companies to adjust over this transition period. But it's important that our companies also do their part and restructure for a better future.
Mr. Lim emphasized the government's commitment to help SMEs. Over the next 3 years, $200 million will be set aside for companies to tap into just for productivity. Spring for One will enhance its capability development scheme. Companies can get up to 70% from 50% before, and the scope will be expanded to include automation and business transformation projects. The Innovation Voucher Scheme will also be enhanced to cover 3 new areas: productivity, HR development and financial management.
In 2011 alone, Spring assisted more than 3,900 SMEs in their upgrading projects under the Capability Development Scheme and other programs. Another 5,100 loans amounting to $1.4 billion under various government loan schemes were also extended to SMEs to finance their business expansion. Many of our SMEs understand the benefits of upgrading and have also tapped on the government's support to lower their cost of upgrading. And we would like to create the greater awareness for the SME sectors to understand that and to know that, to educate them, to understand how to tap on those schemes to help themselves.
Minister of State for Trade and Industry Li Xian went on to spell out the challenges of getting companies to be more productive. He says smaller companies do not understand it and also do not know how to apply their knowledge to their businesses. Mr. Li has pledged to provide support by reaching out to SMEs in different industries, sizes and stages of development. For a start, the government will be investing $42 million on a productivity roadmap for the logistics and transportation sector, which accounts for 8% of GDP and 6% of the workforce. As logistics is a horizontal enabler for other industries, Mr. Li says raising productivity of the sector will also improve the competitiveness of other industries.
First, we'll help the industry to deepen expertise and specialization in supply chain management. By learning from global best practices, our SCM professionals will acquire the latest skills to run world-class SCM operations. Second, we will officially launch a Center of Innovation for Supply Chain Management later this year to demonstrate to SMEs how others have embraced technology and knowledge tools. Located in Republic Polytechnic, the center will provide SMEs with tailored consultancy services, and it aims to help 1,000 SMEs in the next 3 years.
And increasing productivity isn't just limited to upgrading companies internally. The government wants to encourage companies to venture abroad to overcome domestic constraints.
To capture new opportunities for growth, it is critical for Singapore companies to be well supported in their internationalization efforts. How have the government schemes helped companies in the expansion abroad?
IE will increase its level of funding for selected capability development programs from 50% to 70% of qualifying costs. This means companies would pay only 30% share for the selected programs in design, intellectual property, branding, mergers and acquisitions. This year, IE Singapore will also expand its suite of financing schemes to increase support for companies, especially SMEs, that are exploring new or less familiar markets. We will improve their access to trade financing as well as political risk insurance for overseas investments and projects.
The ministry will also be building on Singapore's strong foundation in R&D. Second Minister for Trade and Industry S. Iswaran says SMEs can benefit from R&D investments in the form of transfer of technology. The government has set aside $1 billion to further promote R&D for the country's growth. The funds will help research centres and SMEs proactively identify opportunities for collaboration. Additional investments will also be made in the tourism sector, with $905 million injected over the next 5 years. And for the energy sector, there are plans to diversify Singapore's energy options. This to ensure businesses and households continue to have access to a reliable source of competitively priced energy. And the Trade and Industry Ministry's plans were approved by Parliament, which turned to the Information, Communication and the Arts Ministry. Over $270 million will be set aside to develop the arts and culture scene. $210 million will go into increasing people's participation in the arts. This will go towards more grants for interest groups, facility upgrades and promote appreciation among new audiences. The National Arts Council will also implement a Silver Arts program to conduct activities among the elderly and continue to support ground-up initiatives that benefit the underprivileged. The Government and People's Association have also worked together to post cultural officers in community centres to promote local heritage.
Cultural officer in the days of the Cold War used to be somebody whom after you met you were taken away and never heard of again. So perhaps we could have a slightly more creative and imaginative name for the officer.
To reach out to more Singaporeans, the government will establish multiple arts and culture touchpoints, and this will include cultural concierges in every library to point people to activities, groups and resources, community arts and culture clubs in every constituency to connect grassroots groups together, and a one-stop portal for arts and culture called Arts Culture SG. As to whether we can change the designation from cultural officer to something more appealing, I shall leave it to the creative community to think about.
Second Minister of State for Information, Communications and the Arts, Ms. Grace Fu, addressed concerns about the future of public service broadcast programs which help reinforce national identity. While there is concern over the declining daily reach of free-to-air TV, the panel reviewing PSB programs noted how this is understandable as more people are getting their content from online sources. First, more resources will be channeled to improve the appeal of these programs. PSB content will also be made available on platforms such as the internet. A study of the recommendations is expected to be completed in June.
Countries around the world are facing the same problems. However, we are particularly vulnerable. Our technologically savvy population is well hooked up to the internet, and we are the heaviest internet users in Southeast Asia, averaging 25 hours online per week. The percentage of our population who access the internet has shot up, with daily reach rising from 43% to 62%. Here, I would like to commend MediaCorp for having started to put their PSB programs online since March 2010.
To ensure a safe online environment, the Ministry of Information, Communications and the Arts encouraged the online community to create an internet code of conduct. It will also do more to equip Singaporeans with the skills to navigate cyberspace safely. Minister of State for Information, Communications and the Arts, Chan Chun Sing, said the Inter-Ministry Cyber Wellness Committee has been established to promote responsible use of the internet across public, private and people sector initiatives. And to equip parents with cyber wellness knowledge and skills, the Media Development Authority has set up a parents portal. Mr. Chan said cyber wellness includes an understanding of the risks of harmful online behavior and an awareness of how to protect oneself. Moving forward, he said the Media Development Authority will review the role of the Internet and Media Advisory Committee to see how it could play an even more proactive role in equipping Singaporeans with skills to navigate cyberspace responsibly.
The evolving Internet and media environment is a new terrain for many of us individually and collectively as a society. Our individual ability to master the skills to sense, make and navigate in this environment will help define our aspirations, achievements, and contributions in life. Our collective ability to define the rules we want to operate in will define our society. Going forward, we need to strengthen our information quotient both at the individual and societal level, for all of us to thrive.
And turning to the key issue of housing, the National Development Minister Koh Boon Wan focused his speech on the ethos of the ministry in addressing the needs of the less well-off. He said there were lessons to learn from pioneers who led Singapore's housing board. It was about the longer-term greater good of many, putting community interest above self-interest and daring to try. Mr. Koh said because of that, they turned Toa Payoh into a thriving modern township and Singapore into a world-renowned garden city. He paid tribute to the work of the late Dr. Toh Chin Chai and Mr. Lim Kim San, the Housing Board's first chairman. Under Mr. Lim, public housing and home ownership became firmly established and eventually became the Singaporean way of life. He said he stepped into an MND facing a severe mismatch in supply and demand, which, coupled with global liquidity and low interest rates, caused sharp spikes in housing prices.
The best laid scheme can often go askew. This is particularly so for Singapore, where the larger global environment, over which we have little control, can easily derail our projections. And that was how MND's housing projection and recent rebuilding programs went askew. When our population shot past projections, mortgage interest rates plunged, and our economy made a surprisingly quick and strong rebound in 2010. And bear in mind how difficult it is for the construction industry to ramp up and slow down. There is a long lead time. Many months of corrective action, policy modifications, and hard work have brought some stability to the housing market. We are not yet out of the tunnel, but we are seeing some light at the end of it.
Mr. Koh announced a set of measures focused on building strong families, encouraging families to live close together and helping newlyweds with their housing. Some 25,000 families secured a flat in the last few months, most of them newlyweds. By fixing the issue of first-time buyers, despite the challenges of matching supply and demand, Mr. Koh said he can now turn his attention to the housing needs of other buyers. These include second-time buyers, the elderly who prefer to stay in their neighbourhood. 30% of BTO flats launched this year will be in mature estates, up from 14% last year. Mr. Koh said this will allow more young families to benefit from the Married Child Priority Scheme. HDB will also introduce the Multi-Generation Priority Scheme to give more options for families to stay together, a key thrust of his message.
In Sky Terrace at Dawson, the Dawson project, Sky Terrace at Dawson BTO, HDB experimented with pairing a larger flat with an adjoining studio apartment. So these units allow extended families to live next to each other. Makes a lot of sense. MGPS will build on this and enhance it by allowing joint selection of a BTO unit by the married child with either a studio apartment or a two-room flat by the parents. So they then both apply together. We plan to launch 250 pairs of MGPS units in various estates this year, starting with the Bedok BTO project this month.
Building a compassionate society and helping those who face financial difficulties because of misfortune was another key focus. He said his ministry has been told that the default position is to say yes and give such victims a leg up at a time of need. Divorcees with children, for example, were allocated 670 public rental flats last year, some 20% of all rental flats allocated.
Last week, I saw a resident, and she's a divorcee who has a custody of 3 children. And she wanted to buy a flat from HDB. And she received a letter from HDB asking her to get a letter from her ex-husband to confirm that he will not buy a flat in the next 5 years with any of his children. My first response was, 真的吗? Why make her life so difficult in order to buy a flat from HDB?
Governance with compassion requires a good heart, but it also requires a strong head. Much of the problem in the Western welfare model is that there are too many good hearts and too few strong heads. Solutions become unsustainable. Greece is now a classic case, so let us always be aware of this hazard.
Mr. Kaur says he has stuck to some basic values when formulating these policies. These are inclusiveness, compassion and kindness. Quoting an ancient Confucian ethos, he added that his ministry must ensure it does not unwittingly facilitate negative trends, but actively support positive ones instead.
In just 8 simple words, 老者安之，少者怀之. Try to help the seniors so that they can age with peace of mind and shower the juniors with love and care. This ancient Confucian ethos underpins strong families, the marriage institutions, and filial piety. This is how a strong society is built. With growing individualism like Engineer Lee Bihua, I worry that these values are getting diluted. There are worrying signs: rising divorce rates, abandonment of parents, which is the worst. These are larger social issues beyond MND, but they impact MND's work. At the very least, MND policies must not unwittingly facilitate such negative trends. And where possible, MND policies must actively try to support positive trends. Our latest initiatives, such as the Silver Housing Bonus, Enhanced Lease Buyback, Multi-Generation Priority Scheme, Aging in Place Priority Schemes, are all designed to support this ethos.
Going forward, Mr. Kaur highlighted 3 challenges that will shape the National Development Ministry's work plan. One is preparing for an aged society. Mr. Kaur said more nursing homes and daycare centres will be needed, but there is no one size that will fit all. His ministry will have to try many more models to see which will work. Another challenge is maintaining Singapore's competitive edge as a world-class city. He said the work of his ministry finally goes beyond building homes to building communities.
We used to live in kampongs where everyone knows everyone. There's a general consensus on how we can live together. We take care of one another, gotong royong, as well as our little kampong. There are many reasons for the loss of kampong spirit, but we need to find ways to encourage residents to own their community and to care for one another again. To be sure, there are areas in Singapore where the kampong spirit remains strong. I'm most proud and happy that my constituency, the kampong spirit, is very strong. Yishun South as well. So said Engineer Lee. We need to find out how such spirit can be replicated in many more places.
The debate in Parliament resumes next week. Good night.